All right, folks, welcome back and happy holidays. On this Friday, we have a real issue in our classrooms, everybody. Our education system needs total reform thanks to educators who've been brainwashed by the radical requests by their leftist superiors. The COVID bounce back still hasn't happened, and yet the excuses are getting worse and worse. This major issue picks no favorites. We have chaos in all of our classrooms, starting with preschools and ending on our college campuses. Most level-headed adults, normal American people, are totally aware of this problem, yet somehow every single week we learn about a teacher, yet another teacher, who freaks out just like this.
I came up with the best idea, and it involves my nails. So every day I have new nails because I like practicing, so they change a lot. And every day at morning meeting, I tell this made-up story, and I get really crazy with it. Today was that I got attacked by Cinderella, and this is the gold from her tiara, and this is the blue from her dress. So now, whenever I have a new color, I'm going to have the scholars write their own story to describe what happened to Mr. Morris on his way to school.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you on listening to the podcast on radio, it's a dude, a teacher with a whole lot of nail polish on, a bunch of things going on. These people are insane, yet they're responsible for teaching our children, the youth of this country. How did we let this happen, and how the hell do we make it stop? We got plenty more to discuss, so as always, let's rapid react. All right, let's walk through a little timeline, shall we? That would have seemed completely insane just a short 4 years ago. Imagine if your son or daughter came back from a day of kindergarten, 5-year-olds, and they told you that they learned all about their teacher's nail polish today. Well, how would you feel? Not good, I'm guessing. Fast forward about 2 years, and your same child comes home raving about drag queen story hour that took place during recess of their second grade class. Instead of playing basketball or running around outside, your little kid sat in a circle and learned how to cross-dress from a man wearing eyeliner. 4 years later, your child starts middle school and comes home with a book from health class about how the many genders they can choose to have and how to do it. And they struggle with this information. They also start puberty and are now completely confused about what on earth is going on within their own bodies. Don't blink, because 6 years after that, your child settles in to a college campus and is preparing to study, lesbian dance theory at $120,000 a year degree pop. And finally, just after 4 years of that, your kid is a college graduate with no intellectual or social abilities whatsoever, but they know how to paint their freaking nails. In 4 whole years, they joined no clubs, played no sports, dyed their hair purple and blue. They never went out and left campus with very few friends. They spend weekends protesting on college campuses, screaming and yelling about social issues that they were told they were supposed to care about. They're making coffees at Starbucks. They're baristas because that's all they're qualified to do. And they're living in your basement rent-free. Your relationship is strained because for years, for many, many years, those educators, all the way from second grade all the way up through college, told them that you parents, you're the enemy. And now at age 22 years of age, your kid has to try and learn what's right from wrong, a skill that should have been taught way back in preschool, all while praying that the government will ultimately bail them out of their crippling student debt. Thank you very much, Joe Biden. Well, that's the modern education cycle of American education and a student. Pretty concerning, isn't it? American students were once the global gold standard. Our universities and curriculums were second to none during the COVID era. Our schools were allowed to make life-changing decisions for our children, like forcing them to mask up and sit 6 feet away from their peers. Nobody should be surprised about the spoiled, entitled youth that seemingly runs society today. They're a product of a failed system, and this trend will continue without major reform. And speaking of COVID, did anyone catch the bombshell cover of today's New York Post? Take a look at that. Researchers in the Defense Department and the FBI were reportedly, quote, silenced by, quote, spy chiefs after they found strong evidence that COVID started in a Chinese lab. Because, you know what? I don't know, we've been speaking about this for what, 5 years now? Of course. Their findings never made it to Biden's desk. And could have easily have started as early as 2021. How and why would that be something that the American government would want to keep quiet about? And also, who the heck are these spy chiefs? Who are the spy chiefs that told the regular FBI and others to stand down on what they were finding? This is the American government, not some cartoon movie made for children. Why can't we know the names of these people? Why can't we see their faces? Why is there never an ounce of accountability for a single thing under Joe Biden? Republicans were right all along. Conservatives were right all along. Yet we were called conspiracists, or we were called radicals, or we were anti-science. We were killing the population. Of course, now the damage is done, and anyone with dirty hands has probably been pardoned by the big guy or about to be pardoned by Joe Biden. Joe Biden and his gang of political thugs should be tried as war criminals. So many people lost their lives. They led to one of the worst attacks on America that we will ever see, and it happened from our government, from within, from inside. You want to talk about domestic terrorism? Joe Biden government, Dr. Fauci, flip-flop Fauci, all the Democrats, all these legislators, all the people who fired people because they weren't injected, those people created terror. They're terrorists on the American people. They should be tried. I want to hit one more of these insane headlines that left me scratching my head. The AP, Associated Press, the AP Female Athlete of the Year was announced. You know where we're going, right? You can see it coming. With WNBA sensation Caitlin Clark rightfully winning the award. Unfortunately for Clark, the honor will forever have an asterisk because all of the attention is on Imani Khalif, a woman, Imani Khalif, a woman with male chromosomes who somehow garnered a ton of votes, despite the obvious biological advantage. Khalif is somehow allowed to make a living beating up women in the boxing ring. If you don't remember Imani Khalif, Khalif was the Olympic boxer who was beating the shit out of women. He's a male. It's a dude. I really thought that once these freaks made it into combat sports, or certainly boxing, this unhealthy obsession would finally go away. Apparently, I was incorrect. This guy has seen opponents forfeit fights because of the force of his punches on women. He has a biological advantage over all the other women fighters that accept the challenge. I'm not sure what's worse here. The fact that this freak is allowed to punch women in the face for a living, or the fact that a handful of writers for the AP actually wanted to give that guy an award for beating up women. Khalif did not lose a single round on any scoreboard during the entire 2024 Olympics and was the most Googled athlete of the year in 2024. Just like the radicalization of our classrooms and the secrecy of our government, we're being told that everything is okay when it comes to this fighter's chromosomal advantage. My advice is simple here. Until Trump is back in office, believe the exact opposite of what every single thing the mainstream media and the government puts out and tells you. You'll find yourself in a much, much better place for doing so. Okay, folks, in 2021, Goya launched Goya Cares, a global initiative to protect children and educate children on mental health. Goya Cares is providing schools and community centers with a preventative education curriculum and a free assembly that includes the viewing of the Goya Cares movie called Press Pause. Press Pause is intended to raise awareness regarding the mental health issues, abuse, and bullying among children, among teens, and with those in our communities. Press Pause is an educational film following 15-year-old Sofia Rodriguez as she navigates adolescence, self-doubt, and an abusive relationship amid her parents' turbulent divorce, set within the cultural context of her Hispanic family. The film explores her discomfort with unwanted attention from her uncle and the pressures of maintaining a facade of perfection in high school. It introduces the Press Pause campaign, promoting kindness and advocacy, highlighted by Sophia leaving a note saying, "You matter for a bullied peer." The film encourages open family communication about mental health and culminates in Sophia's transformative realization of her right to seek help through the power of empathy and small acts of kindness. Press Pause displays the importance of being proactive in supporting one's community and underscores the critical importance of self-advocacy. Thank you very much, Goya Cares, because Goya does care. All right, folks, time for today's Truth Bomb. Okay, so if you haven't seen it yet, there's been going this major kind of, let's call it a civil war. I hate to call it civil war because I hate the fact that it's fighting, but there's some fighting going on the right. They're the tech bros versus the OG original gangster MAGA crowd. And Laura Loomer kind of called it out over the weekend, over the holiday, I should say. There was a couple of tech bros who were talking about H-1B visas. Now, there's 65,000 H-1B visas issued a year in America, and it's for companies who want to hire skilled labor from outside the country. I think they added 20 or 25,000 additional for higher level educated outsiders as well. So about 80 to 90,000 per year. Well, it turns out a couple of tech bros, some of whom are now going into the Trump administration, are calling for higher numbers of H-1B visas. That's causing a lot of angst on the original gangster crowd, the MAGA crowd, who said, we're America first. We're about closing our borders, not opening our borders to more people. Now, before I get to where I'm not even going to jump into this fray because I really want, Laura Loomer is the one who highlighted. She went after a couple of people. Vivek Ramaswamy, I'll be honest, I love Vivek. He's a good friend of mine. He said some things about our culture being part of the reason that's getting a lot of backlash. Elon Musk jumped into the fray. Laura went right at Elon Musk. Folks, you got to go on X and see what's going on back here. I will tell you, I think Laura is right in this. I think Laura is saying, before these people get too entrenched in the Trump administration, let's see where their real issues are. Well, let's see where they are on some of the most important issues in MAGA world. And immigration is clearly one of them. H-1B visas is part of the immigration topic. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be discussed. A lot of infighting going on here, a lot of bombs being thrown back and forth. We're going to try and get Laura on the show on Monday. And in the meantime, folks, Truth Bomb here. Go watch what's going on X because it's getting really heated. Let me know what you think. So I guess they really haven't learned a damn thing. The left, they haven't learned a damn thing. Nearly in January, less than 2 weeks away from the certification of this election, which took place 2.5 months ago, Congress has the power to block Trump from taking office, but lawmakers must act now. That's the headline on the Hill. Congress has the power to block Trump. Think about that. I don't know about you, but this entire Hill piece, just from the headline alone, sounds awfully insurrectionist to me. Hey, 2016 called. They want their election denial back. They haven't learned a damn thing on the left. Let's get into it. It's actually worse than you think it is. But before you even click into this article on the Hill, it says, and I quote, Congress does not have to accept Trump's electoral votes. Well, that's the first line, really, doesn't it? That's news to me. Before I dig into this ivory tower liberal elite bullshit, I do have to point out that every single top of this editorial, or right at the very top, the Hill felt it necessary to point out in differentiated red ink that, quote, and this is the Hill writing, the editors, quote, the views expressed by contributors are their own and not the view of the Hill. Here's the problem, Hill. Here's the problem. You still publish this, and you felt you had to add that little line to make it very clear that the editorial board does not share those views, but you published it. I call BS on that, by the way. And they think we're really stupid, I guess. They think we haven't watched them perpetuate the left's propaganda for 4 years. We're just supposed to sit back and believe that, poof, that headline, this piece just came out of thin air, but they did. They had editors read that piece. This is how it works. Contributors come and say, we've got an idea for an article. Hill, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. We have an article. We have an idea. They pitch the article, and the editors say, yeah, that works for our publication, or no, it doesn't. Just like I couldn't just step into the New York Times and do a pro-MAGA article, opinion article. They'd throw me out the door. So the Hill had to have editors read it, certainly have an idea what they were going to write, and be okay with it. So this whole idea of disqualifying the editorial board from what was actually said, that's bullshit. They put it right on top of their page. Nobody, not even, I don't know, like a Barack Obama or say a Nancy Pelosi or like maybe a Jamie Raskin felt it was important to plant a seed like this.
Because what can be put into the Constitution can slip away from you very quickly. And the greatest example going on right now before our very eyes is Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which they're just disappearing with a magic wand, as if it doesn't exist, even though it could not be clearer what it's stating. And so, they want to kick it to Congress, so it's going to be up to us on January 6, 2025, to tell the rampaging Trump mobs that he's disqualified. And then we need bodyguards for everybody in Civil War conditions, all because the 9 justices, not all of them, but these justices who have not many cases to look at every year, not that much work to do, a huge staff, great protection, simply do not want to do their job and interpret what.
So a couple of things here. Jamie Raskin was part of the Trump impeachment. In Trump 1.0, he pushed for the impeachment. Now he's saying the exact same thing that Trump was saying. Well, don't certify the electors. Remember, that's what Trump, this whole January 6th thing was. Don't certify the electors. People took it in their own hands to do what they did on January 6th. But Trump's push was not to certify that election. This is exactly what these morons are saying on the Hill, and they wrote it. These 2 opinion guys on the Hill publication, but. The guy you just heard, Jamie Raskin, is a U.S. congressman who pushed for Trump's impeachment. So I don't know how these people don't see, hey, you called Trump an insurrectionist for what we did in 2020, but then you're going to do it right now yourself? Raskin was saying it right there. He's saying that the 14th Amendment says that President Donald Trump should not be president. He's also saying that the Supreme Court is not doing its job. Hold on for a second. Let's just take that for a second. Thank God for Trump 1.0, who put 3 Supreme Court justices in. Thank God for Trump 2.0, who put 1, maybe 2 more in. The country will be a better place because of the election of Donald Trump 1 and 2. If nothing else, the Supreme Court will be conservative for a very long time. Anyway, I digress. Of course, what Raskin actually means when he says that this is the same thing every single Democrat says about the Supreme Court when rulings don't go their own way. I actually remember very well some of the arguments during the Supreme Court hearings on presidential immunity, and their decision centered on this fact. President Donald Trump did not carry out an insurrection. They never charged him with that. So these idiots, Raskin and these 2 nut jobs at the Hill, saying that Trump can't be president because he's an insurrectionist, there's no grounds for that. It's all bullshit. It's also important to point out that the case is done. It's gone. Jack Smith had to walk away with his tail firmly planted between his legs up his ass. Not an insurrectionist. And yet, in true leftist media machine madness, the plume of Trump derangement syndrome, Evan A. Davis and David M. Schultz, the plume, the butt end, the writers of this opinion piece write as their very first line, quoting, "The Constitution provides that an oath-breaking insurrectionist is ineligible to be president." This is the plain wording of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. No doubt it is the actual wording. You got that part right, folks, 2 morons. But the rest is completely wrong. Oath-breaking insurrectionists? So they're still going with this? There's nothing. He wasn't even charged with insurrection, let alone guilty of it by any court. The fascist thing didn't work. The Trump is Hitler thing didn't work. He's going to lock us all up and put us into camps didn't work. So they decided that the only thing left is Trump is an insurrectionist, even though that's not even true at all. I'll spare you the details of the rest of the enraging piece, clearly dedicated and dictated to those comrades by their deep state leaders. I don't think anyone could be stupid enough to come up with this idea on their own. But they point out the BS, bogus, banana republic second impeachment of Trump, entirely unwarranted. But more importantly, they sit there and make the argument that Congress can still turn their ship around. 312 electoral college votes, didn't matter to them. Well over 2 million more popular votes than Kamala Harris. Doesn't matter to them. All 7 swing states to Trump. Doesn't matter. A decisive win in a democratic process, our election. The American people resoundingly voted for Trump. Doesn't matter for them. They voted for Trump. They voted for MAGA, for change. And less than 2 weeks before the certification, not the swearing in, but the certification on January 6th of 25, Trump's presidential win, they're actually suggesting that Congress should cancel it all somehow. They've learned nothing, folks. And not just because they still refuse to believe that America saw through all of their lawfare BS. America voted the way they did because America didn't buy the lies on the left and their propaganda. The leftist machine's time is up, and they throw up one last Hail Mary, and they're actually suggesting that Democrats should do the very same thing they're accusing Donald Trump for having done. The thing they ripped him for 4 years about Joe Scarborough and Mika, Joyless Joy Reid, Stephen Colbert, all your ratings are tanking because you lied to the American people. You spent 4 years calling him an insurrectionist, and then he wins, and now you're saying do the same thing that you accused him of being an insurrectionist about. It's actually mind-boggling to me that anyone would actually say this, but I do have to read out the way the piece ends. Ready for this? I'm quoting The Hill again. Democrats need to take a stand against electoral college votes for a person disqualified by the Constitution from holding office unless and until this disability is removed. No less is required by their oath to support and defend the Constitution. Their oath to support and defend the Constitution. That's rich coming from the party that has done everything in their power to try and undermine our constitutional rights from day one, our freedom of speech, our Second Amendment shall not be infringed upon rights. And they've abused the Constitution to come after Biden's political opponents at every single turn. Trump committed an insurrection. They said he didn't. So let's commit one ourselves. So the Democrats are now pro-insurrection. They've learned absolutely nothing. CNN, tanking in the ratings. Maybe they should stop staging the rescue of Syrian prisoners who are actually Assad torturers, but I digress. We talked about that last week. So CNN is tanking in the ratings because Americans see right through their leftist propaganda BS. So in a desperate bid, they bring in one guy, one Trump guy, and they expect some kind of miracle. It didn't happen. So CNN journalists offer a brutal assessment of why their network is failing because they're not going hard enough against Trump anymore. That's what they said. Are you kidding me? That's what they think is going on. CNN's tanking in the ratings because they're not being hard enough on Trump. That's what you think. And maybe it's not because they constantly lie or never apologize for those lies, but maybe not because they're so obviously shilling for the Democrat Party, covering for an old, decrepit Joe Biden. Russia, collusion, Russia, disinformation, mostly peaceful protests. Masks work. Get vaccinated or else you shouldn't be allowed to leave your house. All CNN. And they think it's because they're not hitting Trump hard enough. They've learned absolutely nothing. How about trying some real journalism? How about actually calling out the insanity on the left? Joe Biden, as his party, as he's leaving, his parting Christmas gift to the grieving families, handed a reprieve to 37 out of 40 of the most evil, maniacal people on earth on death row. He commuted 37 out of 40 sentences. Murderers, child rapists. Joe let him go. Joe let him go. He took him off being killed, due justice being done to the people who've done some of the most horrific things to children and women and fellow citizens. He took them off death row. The middle finger right to those families whose children were raped and killed. And CNN has nothing to say about it. Now that President Trump is heading back to the White House, Joe Biden has suddenly rescinded his vote-buying scheme to forgive student debt loan. Oh, could it be more obvious that they bought those votes? What are you going to say about that, CNN? Or how about this? President Trump is heading back to the White House. So now they're all revising all the BS numbers they put out during the Biden administration. The government initially reported that in Q2 of this year, there were 653,000 job gains. Remember, because that was before the election. They were trying to pump up Biden. They hadn't stopped lying. They could not stop lying about it on the campaign trail and then handed the liar baton to Cackles Harris. But it turns out it was all actually BS. It was actually negative. They didn't create 653,000. They actually falsified the numbers to help Biden and to help Harris. And CNN, nothing to say about it. Biden just started yet another vacation. Yep, he's off for a week in the Caribbean. He's already spent 40+% of his presidency on vacation, 570 days to be exact. After pardoning killers and rapists, and CNN, nothing to say about it. Not just that, but we're finding out the extent to which Biden's decline, how early it actually started, and the gory details of just how many of these jackals covered up the truth and just how treasonous the cover-up really was. And CNN has nothing to say about it. In fact, they worked very hard to help cover it all up. Remember the millions of times they decided to gaslight Americans about cheap fakes when showing how Joe Biden was looking lost, wandering off at summits. They said, oh, no, there's no context to that. There was actually a lot of people around him. No, it wasn't. He walked into the forest with world leaders going, where did he go? Because we're all taking a picture over here. He missed the G20 picture. He was lost. Missed it. Telling the truth, reporting the facts, that's how you get the American people to trust you. But that's just not possible when you're the White House propaganda machine. The latest spin is in their desperate attempt to cover up for the worst president of all time, who implemented some of the worst policies of all time. They're trying to make Biden's legacy about the dementia. It's not his fault, you see. He was just senile. And others were running the show, actually. It wasn't really Joe all along. You see, it was all those other people who helped carry him through, the ones who helped cover it all up. Well, the truth is, and many things, many, many, many things can be true all at once. The treasonous bastards who helped cover it all up are the bad guys. But Joe Biden is a bad guy, too. He's never been a good guy, and they know it. They knew it when he plagiarized and had to drop out of the presidential race twice when he got caught. They knew it when he was bribing Ukrainian presidents in order to cover up for his son. They knew it when the Biden family was filling their coffers, using their family name and influence to get rich. They knew it when Joe helped launch global conflicts, when he spent money like it grows on trees, your money, when he handed it to Iran. They knew it when he labeled half the country as MAGA extremists. By the way, more than half voted for him, Trump. And now they want you to believe that all of those things were the workings of a senile man. Well, they're not. They're the workings of an America-hating president and a party that's only interested in power and control and making themselves rich off the backs of hardworking Americans. That's why they lost an election so decisively, so handily. That's why they lost, because they cut the private parts of children. They said that was okay. They lost because they made everything about race and divided the country. They lost because they cared more about invaders crossing the border than about actual citizens of this country. They lost because criminals are more important than victims in their crimes on their side. They were more about the criminals than the victims. That's why they lost. But the legacy media, also a big loser in all of this, refuses to admit the truths. They've learned absolutely nothing. All right, folks, this is certainly one you don't see every day. Well, you kind of do. Crime in Baltimore is nothing new, but just like that, basically every other major Democrat city is like that. Massive rampant crime. There are burglaries, there's murders, and very little leadership. A recent armed carjacking is making major headlines. Take a listen and try and figure out why.
Tonight, a 9-year-old is among 5 people arrested for an armed carjacking in southeast Baltimore. This happened yesterday at a stop sign at Grundy and Bank Street. Baltimore police say a woman told them a suspect used a metal tool to smash her window, and then she was dragged from the car. Police were able to track the car and arrest 5 people, their ages ranging from 21 to just 9 years old. Again, 21 to 9 years old.
That's right. One of the carjackers, the armed carjackers, was 9 years old, literally 9. Where the hell are those parents, folks? I got to tell you, it's getting worse and worse in Democrat world. Thank God Trump is coming.